You get an email from an unknown doctor. Is it spam or is it the answer to all your prayers? Welcome back to Teacher Tales, where we follow one teacher fighting her way through career burnout to find work-life balance and educational bliss, if it still exists. On this episode of Teacher Tales, we learn 3 infallible ways to fight teacher burnout and find the work-life balance you're seeking. But first, another tale from your favorite teacher. Teagan Raines, a powerhouse of passion and dedication, juggled the roles of a loving wife, a caring mother, and a devoted teacher. Immersed in the whirlwind of grading, emails, and a myriad of responsibilities, Teagan often teetered on the edge of exhaustion. Yet, with a resilient spirit, she would humorously mutter Jay-Z's famous lyrics, "This can't be life." One day, buried in the relentless demands of planning and grading, Teagan stumbled upon a beacon of hope in one of the countless educational spam emails. The headline screamed, "Mastering Work-Life Balance, Secrets Unveiled by Dr. Wyndham." Despite her initial skepticism, an ember of optimism flickered within her as she signed up, whispering to herself, this seminar could be the key to balance, or at the very least, a welcome day off. Lord knows I could use both. In a nondescript hotel conference room, Dr. Wyndham, a distinguished and charismatic speaker, took the stage, weaving a tapestry of humorous anecdotes into profound insights on work-life balance. Teagan, initially wearing an amused expression, found herself utterly captivated, silently acknowledging, this is not just informative, it's entertaining. During the networking session, Teagan encountered a kindred spirit in Sarah, a fellow teacher who claimed to have mastered the elusive art of work-life balance. Sarah shared her secrets and recommended a support group for working parents, sparking a fire of excitement within Teagan. Sarah seems to have cracked the code. Perhaps I can glean wisdom from her and others in that support group. Maybe, just maybe, I can make this work. Armed with renewed hope, Teagan left the seminar with a determination to apply these newfound tactics, but not before the laundry was sorted, of course. She embarked on a journey of restructuring her daily routine, awakening an hour earlier to fuel her mind and body through meditation and exercise. Teagan, the epitome of resilience, leaned on her fellow teachers for both academic and emotional support, unearthing invaluable insights and discovering an engaging podcast on work-life balance. Despite the occasional tumultuous day, Teagan found herself reveling in a surplus of good days. She embraced the understanding that even with the noblest intentions, achieving work-life balance was a continuous journey with its inevitable stumbles along the way. In the grand finale, the lesson from Dr. Wyndham and the unwavering support of her fellow co-workers propelled Teagan to new heights. Work-life balance became not just an aspiration, but a dynamic, evolving reality, one worthy pursuing for the sake of her family and her indomitable spirit. Daily, Teagan whispered to herself the mantras forged through her transformative journey. Number 1, self-discipline. Rein it in, Teagan. Rein it in. Number 2, use your resources. You're not in this alone. And number 3, it's a journey, not a destination. Teagan, a force to be reckoned with, found herself not just navigating her roles as a wife, mother, and teacher, but mastering the symphony of her existence with a newfound vigor and unyielding determination. Wow, way to go, Teagan. So let's go. Number 1, self-discipline. So this one is obviously difficult for everyone in some aspects. So the way that I try to maintain self-discipline are through, of course, timers, like making sure, like, okay, you got one video, one YouTube video, 30 minutes, and then you're up. You're done. Back to work. And sometimes you do need to set a timer because timers, they trigger something in our brain that it's time to move. It's time to switch. It's time to start or stop something. So timers are good. Reminders, not the same as a timer. So for example, I have this reminder after I do my tardy station duty. The timer is at 2 o'clock and it says go back to your room. So that reminder is just there to tell me, okay, get out the hallways, get back focused on what you need to do. Go back to your room. Usually I have to grab my laptop, or maybe I may be changing to get ready for a workout and grabbing my laptop. Maybe I need to put some grades in, all of the above, lesson planning, so on and so forth. But this reminder helps me to stay on track. And that's just one thing. The next thing is definitely calendar. So with the stuff that I do outside of school, with obviously having a podcast, doing stuff at church, softball, one of my favorite things to do. I have to have a calendar. And that's not just for me, it's also for my wonderful wife who supports me in everything. The calendar helps me to see, okay, what do I need to do today? Because if it's not on the calendar, I'm probably going to forget. So calendars are awesome. And then the last thing that I think sometimes is overlooked in education, because we're a lot of times working in silos. We don't necessarily have somebody else that we are working with every single day, but an accountability partner. So this is typically going to be a friend. Like usually somebody that's holding you accountable is somebody that knows you, that can call you out, and you're not going to, get too upset. You may get a little annoyed because who likes being called out? But they help to keep you on track. Like, hey, Mr. Franklin, get it together. We got to take care of some business. So that's number one, self-discipline. Number two, use your resources. So I had a conversation with a teacher. Shout out, you know who you are. And we kind of talked a little bit back and forth about resources. And basically, he was like, I don't have any resources. The stuff that I want to do for my classroom, the stuff that I want to do in education, the resources just aren't there in the school that I work in. And obviously, that is his experience. And depending on what school and what district you work in, the resources may be abundant or they may be scarce. So I know for the school that I work in and what I do, I honestly don't need a ton of resources. I teach speech class or communications. There's not really a lot that is put on me as a requirement for graduation in my district, but it's not a core class. So typically, people don't really bother you if you're not a core class. That's been my experience. And I'm always trying to do my best and trying to make things work and try to be creative in the classroom. So a lot of times for me, the human resource is the greatest resource because I need people that I can like bounce ideas off of. I have specific teachers that I call when I'm like thinking of something like, okay, what you think about this? What about this? What about bringing somebody in to talk to kids about interviews? What about doing like this speed interview game? I'm talking about interviews and resumes right now because that's what I'm teaching. But resources for me mostly is about the human resource. But there are also other things that you can use, like whatever online tool that your school uses, like see what all that thing offers. I know for us, we have Schoology. And so I try to put everything on there. I try to make different quizzes or assessments. I try to have kids record in Schoology so that we can now go back and watch their videos so that they can self-assess. I try to just use all of the tools that it offers. There are like completion folders that I'm screwing around with now. So just whatever resources you have, use them to their capabilities. And when you find that you're lacking in some things, I would say reach out to other teachers. Like there are tons of forums online. look at me, forums. I sound old. There are tons of groups on Facebook. Like there's always teachers out there. There are podcasts where teachers are trying to help you or help other teachers be the best that they can be. And then another thing is, work smarter, not harder. There are, like I said, resources out there that are already created. So you don't have to make everything from scratch, and you don't necessarily have to pay for everything either. So it's easy Google search, Chat GPT is a thing that a lot of people are using, and it has been useful for me. I was on the phone with another teacher earlier this evening, and we were talking about just discussion topics. So I put in something very specific, and it came up with some great topics, So use your resources as much as you can, whatever resources those are. If you don't have what you need, just a quick Google search away. There are tons of groups out there that are willing and able to help people. And so number 3 is something that applies to all of us, no matter what you're doing. And that is, it's a journey. So becoming a teacher, being a teacher, sustaining yourself in teaching, in education, it's a journey because you just learn stuff along the way that's going to help you. So the first thing I looked at was create a process. You have to have a process in how you do things. You have to be able to lean on this process when things go haywire. You have to make something, whether that's for lesson planning, creating a process for lesson planning. Sometimes people say, start with the end in mind. Where do we want to get people to? If that process involves a calendar, how many days do I have to teach this? What are my units on? And, just have to create a process for everything as much as you can. Now, sometimes in teaching, things fly out the window, literally and figuratively, when stuff doesn't work. So creating a process definitely will help. The second thing is do what works and leave what doesn't. You can't teach your classroom like the person across the hall or your next door neighbor. You have to be yourself, and that looks different for everyone's classroom. So just make sure you take what works, and as you, again, using those resources, just add whatever you can into your classroom. That's what I did. The person who used to teach across the hall from me, very different in how she handled things. But there are some things that are the same. We both have discipline in our classroom. There's respect in our classroom. There is uplifting others in our classrooms. We did it differently, but those are some things that are always in a good classroom. So it's a journey. Create a process. Take what works for you. Leave the stuff that don't. And then life changes all the time, but the goal shouldn't, unless it should. And what I mean by that, for me, I didn't want to go to graduate school. I didn't see any use for it 4 years ago. But now, in my 6th year of teaching, 6th or 7th year, because I started teaching in China. Now I'm in grad school, about halfway through, and the goal changed. So pivot when you need to, and always self-assess. So just to recap, number 1, self-discipline, put something in place, keep yourself in the right mindset and moving forward. Number 2, use your resources, whatever those are. And if you don't have what you need, go find what you need. And number 3, it is a journey. Create a process, do what works, leave what doesn't, always self-assess. Now, of course, this is just the first episode of the week, and I'll have someone else on to talk about these same topics and really jump into the nitty-gritty. So, keep teaching, keep learning, and I will see you all on the next journey.